Predictability is one of the fastest ways to become invisible in someone's mind. And I'm not talking about the kind of stability that builds trust, because yes, a relationship needs a certain level of reliability. I'm talking about the kind of predictability where every action, every response, every pattern is so routine that she no longer has to think about what you might do next. She already knows. And once she knows, she stops wondering. When she stops wondering, she stops worrying. See, the human brain is wired to pay attention to novelty. We are drawn to what we cannot fully anticipate. It's the reason a plot twist in a movie excites you, or why an unexpected compliment lingers in your mind far longer than a generic one. If you remove all unpredictability from your presence, you strip away the very tension that keeps her mind engaged when you're not around. You become a background character in her life, safe, predictable, and forgettable. Now, unpredictability doesn't mean playing games or being erratic for no reason. That's immaturity, not strategy. What it means is shifting the rhythm just enough that she can't fully anticipate your next move. Maybe you don't always respond to her messages immediately. Maybe instead of your usual weekend routine, you suddenly make plans she didn't see coming, even the way you communicate. Sometimes deep and reflective, other times light and playful, creates a dynamic energy that keeps her on her toes. What's happening psychologically is this. When she doesn't know exactly what you're going to do, her brain starts filling in the blanks. She wonders, where is he? Who is he with? What's he thinking? That mental loop is where attraction often deepens, not because you're manipulating her, but because you've reintroduced mystery into the connection. The irony is that most men lose this edge after the early stages of dating. In the beginning, you're naturally a little unpredictable because you're still getting to know each other. But once you feel comfortable, you settle into patterns. You send the same good morning text at the same time every day. You have the same conversations in the same tone. You plan the same kinds of dates. And while consistency can be comforting, when it becomes monotonous, it dulls the emotional intensity. Unpredictability, used wisely, isn't about chaos. It's about creating contrast. Contrast between availability and absence, between familiar and new, between certainty and curiosity. It's the space between what she knows and what she wants to find out that makes her lean in. If you want her to think about you when you're not there, you need to give her mind something to chew on. You need to be stable enough for her to trust you, but layered enough for her to never feel like she's figured you out completely. That balance keeps her emotionally invested, because somewhere in her subconscious, she's aware that she could lose your attention if she stops paying hers. In the end, a woman will only worry about losing you if she feels you are not fully within her grasp. When you break the chains of predictability, you make room for that feeling to grow. And when it grows, she doesn't just think of you, she feels you even in your absence. Never let predictability make you invisible. Keep just enough mystery that she has to hold on tighter, not because you asked her to, but because she doesn't want to risk letting you go. Silence is one of the most underestimated tools a man can use. Not the awkward, passive kind, but intentional silence. When you are constantly available, constantly updating her, constantly feeding her with reassurance, you remove all space for curiosity to breathe. And curiosity is the seed from which desire often grows. You see, in the early stages of attraction, silence feels like a gap that needs to be filled. She starts to wonder, what's on his mind? Why hasn't he reached out? Is something different? That wondering is not always comfortable for her. But it is powerful. It places you in her thoughts without you lifting a finger. It makes her engage with you in her mind before she even engages with you in reality. The truth is, people only worry about losing something when they realize it's not guaranteed. And your constant presence, texting morning, noon, and night can trick her into believing that you're always going to be there, no matter how she responds. When that belief solidifies, urgency fades. She doesn't have to fight for your attention because she already owns it. And when she feels she owns it entirely, she stops valuing it in the same way. Strategic silence disrupts that illusion. It reminds her, without you having to say a word, that you are a man with your own life, your own priorities, your own center of gravity. You are not orbiting around her world. You are moving within your own. That shift is magnetic because it forces her to lean toward you rather than you constantly leaning toward her. This isn't about punishing her or ignoring her as a form of control. That's manipulation, and it will always backfire. It's about pacing the interaction so there's breathing room. Think of it like music. If there were no pauses between notes, the melody would just be noise. It's the space between the sounds that makes the song beautiful. In relationships, silence is that space. When you intentionally create moments of quiet, whether that's taking time before replying to a message, not always initiating the next hangout, or simply allowing a few days to pass without constant check-ins, you invite her to step into that gap. And in doing so, you change the dynamic from you pursuing her to her making sure she still has your attention. Women don't just worry because of what you say or do, they worry because of what they don't know. When she can't fully read you, when she feels the slightest shift in your rhythm, her instincts will push her to bridge that distance. She'll wonder if you're busy, if something's changed, if someone else might be capturing your focus. That's when the worrying begins. Not because you've played a cruel game, but because you've reintroduced the natural balance of give and take that keeps attraction alive. The strongest connections are not built on constant chatter, but on intentional space. Space that makes her value your presence because she has felt your absence. When you master the art of silence, you don't have to demand her attention. She will give it to you willingly because the thought of losing you will feel far louder than anything you could ever say. One of the most effective ways to make a woman worry about you is to live a life so full, so rich, that she feels like she could be missing out on it. This isn't about faking business or trying to make her jealous. It's about genuinely building a life that doesn't revolve around her. When a woman senses that you have purpose, passions, and priorities that exist independently of her, it shifts something deep in her mind. She begins to realize that your world doesn't collapse without her, and that creates both intrigue and urgency. You see, human nature is wired to chase what feels scarce and to undervalue what feels endlessly available. When your attention is constantly on her, she starts to take it for granted. Not out of malice, but because that's how the human brain works. But when your time is clearly occupied by things that fulfill you, whether it's your career, your personal goals, your fitness, your hobbies, or your social circle, she begins to notice the space you've left for her isn't guaranteed. And here's the twist, it's not just about her worrying she might lose you. It's about her worrying she might not even be keeping up with you. That's a very different energy. Instead of her feeling like she's the center of your universe, she feels the need to earn her place in your orbit. That flips the dynamic. She's no longer passively receiving your presence. She's actively seeking it. Living a full life also communicates something silently, but powerfully. You have options. Not necessarily that you're entertaining other women, but that you are the kind of man who could if he wanted to. And that subtle awareness can be a wake-up call to a woman who might have been taking you for granted. It reminds her that she is not your only source of happiness or validation. But here's the key. This can't be performative. Women are incredibly perceptive, and if you're pretending to be busy while secretly sitting at home waiting for her text, she will sense it. This has to be real. You must invest in yourself for the sake of your own growth, not simply to trigger a reaction from her. The side effect of that self-investment is that she will worry, not because you've pulled away in a manipulative way, but because she feels the natural tension of wanting more of you than she's getting. That's the sweet spot. She's wondering what you're doing, who you're with, what's making you smile at that exact moment, and she realizes she doesn't have the full answer. That space between what she knows and what she wants to know keeps her leaning in, keeps her attentive, and keeps her aware that if she doesn't nurture the connection, she could lose her place in your life. When your life is so full that she fears missing out on it, you don't have to chase her attention. She will chase because deep down, she knows that being a part of your world is a privilege, not a guarantee. Another way to make a woman genuinely worry about you is to embrace unpredictability, not in a chaotic, unstable sense, but in a way that keeps her from ever feeling like she has you fully figured out. When every move you make is predictable, every reaction foreseeable, and every routine obvious, you strip away the sense of mystery that fuels emotional investment. People are naturally drawn to what they can't entirely decode. A bit of unpredictability keeps her mentally and emotionally engaged because she never quite knows what to expect from you next. Think about it. When someone knows exactly when you'll call, what you'll say, and how you'll react, they stop thinking about you in between those moments. Your presence becomes mentally filed away as familiar and safe. And while safety has its place in relationships, it's not the same as intrigue. Intrigue is what keeps her wondering, and wondering is what keeps her emotionally tied. This doesn't mean playing games or intentionally withholding affection just to manipulate her. It's about breaking patterns that make your attention feel automatic. Maybe instead of responding to her messages instantly every time, you take a little longer. Not because you're forcing distance, but because you're genuinely living your life. Maybe instead of always initiating plans, you sometimes wait for her to make the effort. Or instead of defaulting to the same date spot or conversation topics, you surprise her with something unexpected. Small shifts like these create a sense of unpredictability that keeps her on her toes. She doesn't fall into the comfort of assuming you'll always be there in the exact same way. And that subtle uncertainty can spark a deeper desire to secure her place in your life. There's also a psychological layer here. When you introduce an element of unpredictability, you activate something known as variable reward. It's the same mechanism that keeps people coming back to check their phones or scroll through social media. They never know exactly what they'll get or when they'll get it, so they keep seeking the next moment of connection. That applies to human relationships too. If she knows that being close to you brings both comfort and excitement, she will stay invested because she doesn't want to miss those high value moments when you do show up in an unexpected way. Of course, unpredictability only works if it's paired with authenticity. If you're forcing it, exaggerating it, or using it to manipulate, she will eventually feel the hollowness beneath it. But if it's simply a natural extension of the fact that you have a rich, dynamic life and you're not always available in the exact same way, then it becomes magnetic. She starts paying closer attention, she invests more effort, and yes, she worries even if she won't admit it out loud. The truth is, we tend to value what we can't fully grasp. When she realizes that she doesn't entirely have you figured out, she'll work harder to understand you, to keep you close, and to remain a part of your evolving world. Because at the end of the day, it's not the man she can predict that she loses sleep over. It's the one who keeps her wondering. Another powerful way to make a woman worry about you is to demonstrate that her presence in your life is valued, but not indispensable. This is where most men fail because they mistakenly believe that the more they show her she's the center of their world, the more secure she'll feel and the more she'll invest. But security without challenge can quickly breed complacency, and complacency is the slow death of attraction. When a woman senses that you will always be there, no matter what she does or how she behaves, her mind stops working to keep your attention. That's not because she's malicious or ungrateful. It's simply human psychology. We are wired to protect and work for what we believe we could lose. And if you remove the possibility of loss entirely, you remove the urgency to nurture the bond. The key is subtle balance. You want to make her feel wanted, appreciated, and cared for, but you also want to carry yourself in a way that communicates, I was whole before you, and I'll be whole if you leave. This mindset isn't about arrogance or emotional detachment. It's about self-respect and maintaining your independence as a man. One way to do this is by not centering your entire identity around the relationship. Continue pursuing your goals, spending time with friends, and investing in hobbies and passions that existed before her. When she sees that your happiness and sense of purpose come from a life bigger than just the relationship, she subconsciously realizes that she isn't your only source of fulfillment. This creates a healthy tension. She knows she's valued, but she also knows she has to actively maintain her place in your world. It's also about boundaries. A man who has boundaries commands respect because he shows that his time, energy, and emotional space are precious. If she crosses a line or takes you for granted, you address it firmly instead of brushing it aside out of fear of losing her. That quiet strength is something a woman feels deep in her core, and it keeps her on her toes because she understands you're not a man she can treat carelessly and still keep. This principle works because it taps into a deep psychological truth. People don't worry about losing something they think is permanent. They worry about losing something rare, something they can't easily replace. By maintaining your independence and sense of self, you become that rare thing. The beauty of this approach is that it doesn't require games or manipulation. You're not manufacturing scarcity. You're simply living in a way that naturally makes your presence valuable. And when something is valuable, people instinctively protect it. Because in the end, the man she worries about losing isn't the one who clings to her. It's the one who stands strong with or without her. One of the most underestimated ways to make a woman worry about you is by maintaining an element of unpredictability. I'm not talking about being erratic or inconsistent in a way that breaks trust, that will only damage the relationship. I'm talking about keeping enough mystery in your life that she never feels like she's figured you out completely. When a relationship becomes too predictable, it becomes too comfortable. And while comfort has its place in love, it can also dull excitement and reduce the natural tension that fuels attraction. If she knows exactly where you'll be, what you'll be doing, and how you'll respond to every situation, there's no spark of curiosity left. The mind stops wondering, and when the mind stops wondering, the heart stops racing. By occasionally stepping outside of your usual patterns, you create moments where she pauses and thinks, what's going on with him? What's he up to? That moment of curiosity is the seed of worry, not in a negative, insecure way, but in a way that keeps her engaged and attentive. It's the same principle that draws people to good storytelling. If you already know the ending, the story loses its grip on you. But when there's suspense, you lean forward and pay closer attention. This unpredictability doesn't have to be dramatic. It could be as simple as pursuing a new interest she didn't expect, rearranging your schedule to make time for something important to you, or showing up differently in the way you communicate. It could be taking a weekend trip without announcing every detail, or surprising her with a shift in perspective on something she thought you were set in stone about. The key is that these actions come from genuine growth and exploration, not from playing games. If your unpredictability is authentic, born out of your own evolving life and personality, it will feel intriguing rather than manipulative. She will feel both secure in knowing you're her man and compelled to keep up with your growth because she can't get lazy in how she connects with you. Unpredictability works because it speaks to a fundamental truth about attraction. We are drawn to what we cannot fully possess. Even in deep, committed love, there's an allure in knowing there's still more to discover about someone. When she feels there's always another layer to you, another chapter unfolding, she will never feel completely at rest, and that restlessness is what makes her think about you when you're not around. So don't hand over every page of your story at once. Keep living, keep evolving, and let her see glimpses of changes she didn't anticipate. That way, she's always slightly leaning toward you, always wondering, always feeling that pull. Because in the end, the man she worries about isn't the one who is fully predictable. It's the one whose depth she's still trying to explore. And that's the kind of man who never fades from her mind.